that we'd like to have everyone know about before we go into the lesson for today?
We have the team meeting at 11:30.
How did I forget that? Yes, team meeting's at 11:30 today. Thank you, Barb. Yes. So at 11:30, and that's going to be in Zoom format as well. So make sure you join us for that. All right. So today is going to be our lesson number 39 in A Course of Miracles. Just to review what we've done over the last week or so, beginning a week ago Monday, our lesson was I'm not the victim of the world I see. On Tuesday, it was I have invented the world that I see. And then on Thursday last week, we had, or on Wednesday, we had, there's another way of looking at the world. And those were all about kind of how our thinking is and our seeing and the images we create and what they do to us or for us. Then on Thursday, we talked about I could see peace instead of this. And Friday, we ended the week with this one. My mind is a part of God's. I am very holy. And we started in this conversation around the word holy or holiness, and understanding that that's not in the religious context of holy, it's the whole you. It's it's you are holy, you're perfect the way you are and complete the way you are. That's the holiness that they talk about. Monday we began this week then by using the lesson, my holiness envelops everything I see. And then Tuesday we talked about this, and that was my holiness blesses the world. And then yesterday, this was our where we left off, is there is nothing my holiness cannot do. And we gave you a lesson yesterday that was maybe a little bit different, where we asked you to do longer periods of up to 5 minutes, where you looked at that conversation about there is nothing my holiness cannot do, meaning that you have the full control over anything that you desire, right? You're perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete. And I kept in because I just loved a couple of the bullet points that I shared with you yesterday, just as a review from lesson 38. And that is, I thought these would be good just to review again, because these are just powerful statements, right? When you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. When you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. And the second one was this one: you are perfect, whole, and complete, just how you are. That's how you were made. That's how you are, and you're perfect, whole, and complete. And then also that your world is controlled by how you define yourself. So that whole idea of what we carry around of ourselves as our self-image, really, I'm encouraging you to go back to that idea that you are perfect, whole, and complete, that there is nothing wrong with you. You're perfect, whole, and complete. And then in doing that and really working from there, what you're eliminating is ego. Because it's your ego that argues for limitations. It's your ego that wants to separate you from the rest of the world. It's your ego that's job, it thinks, is to protect the physical body by doing all these things, and yet understanding that that's what it does and not letting it control you is key. And then the last one is, because of ego, we live in a world that fear dictates and rules the world. And that is ego-based. That is ego-based. So just really understanding that those kind of 5 key concepts are a piece of this. I just don't want to have them get lost in the shuffle, because I think they're really powerful, really powerful. And today's going to play off of lesson 38 as well with lesson 39. And today's lesson is this: that my holiness is my salvation. My holiness is my salvation. And it starts out in the text for the lesson by asking this question: if guilt is hell, what is hell's opposite? So if guilt is hell, what is hell's opposite? So it goes on to say, like the text for which this workbook was written, the ideas used for the exercise are very simple, very clear, and totally unambiguous. We are not concerned with intellectual feats nor logical toys. We are dealing only in the very obvious, which has been overlooked in the clouds of complexity in which you think you think. That first paragraph is such a powerful one, because I had to go read that a couple times when I first read this, going, okay, wait a minute, this is a little complex. It doesn't seem unambiguous. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around a lot of this Course in Miracles, and yet the statement is that it's not it at all. It's not it at all. We are dealing only in the obvious, which has been overlooked in the clouds of complexity in which you think you think. And here's what kind of dawned on me. I think as humans, we tend to want to complicate things, right? It's like, almost like you say, it can't be that simple. It can't be that easy. There's got to be more to this. And I think that's really what we've done in a lot of the work we're doing here in A Course in Miracles, is we try to make it more than it is. So it goes on to say this: if guilt is hell, what is hell's opposite? This is not difficult. Surely. Now, the hesitation you may feel in answering this question is not due to the ambiguity of the question, but do you believe that guilt is hell? See, if you did believe that guilt is hell, you would see at once how direct and simple this text is. And you would not need a workbook like we've been doing at all. You would have what you need. So this gave me pause as well, because we go, wait a minute, I still am not sure I get this. So it goes on to say, would you know that hell's opposite then is salvation? So if guilt is hell, what is the opposite? And it goes on, it says this, it says that you would know that hell's opposite is salvation. See, no one needs practice to gain what already is. No one needs practice to gain what already is. So your salvation is already yours because you are holy. And remember, holy is that you are perfect, whole, and complete. That's holy. I'm going to give you the definition of salvation at the end of this too, because I think a lot of times we get, I know I did, because I was raised in a church, and I, these words, holiness and salvation and redemption, and I'm trying to think of some of the others, a little slightly different context in this course. So I just want to make sure that we've got clarity that way. So it goes on to say, we already said that your holiness is the salvation of the world. We've said that in an earlier lesson. So what about your own salvation? So you cannot give what you do not have. You cannot give what you do not have. A savior must be saved. So how else can a savior teach salvation? So today's exercise will apply to you, recognizing that your salvation is crucial to the salvation of the world. As you apply the exercises, that your holiness is your salvation to your world, the whole world stands to benefit. So your holiness is the answer to every question that is ever asked. It's being now or will ever be asked in the future. And remember, your holiness is that you're perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete. So your holiness means at the end of guilt, and therefore the end of hell. So when you're perfect, whole, and complete, there is no more guilt, which means that hell is gone then. So your holiness is the salvation of the world, and your own salvation is your holiness. So how could you to whom your holiness belongs be excluded from you? See, God does not know unholiness. Can it be God does not know his son? And I'm going to leave that for a moment, because I'm going to go back to a little more of the depth of the conversation around this, because I don't want to get caught up in kind of getting in our heads around this. So I want to break it down a little bit more. So it says, Lesson 39 asks a question: if guilt is hell, what is the opposite? Hell's opposite must be salvation, or in religious terms, heaven. See, your holiness is your salvation, but what does this really mean? How can you escape from hell? The lesson clearly states that the source of hell is your own unloving thoughts. So the source of hell is your own unloving thoughts. This means that you have the power within you to change them. Your own unloving thoughts must be seen differently if salvation is to be obtained. So we said that thoughts are meaningless. Remember that was a lesson a long time ago, actually. Thoughts are meaningless and have no ability to impact the truth. So how can your unloving thoughts then create a living hell? So this is where we start getting a little more complicated, right? So it goes on to say this, though: although thoughts themselves are powerless, thoughts raised to the level of beliefs do have power. And that power can impact your provisional reality and how you relate to the private world of your individuated perceptions. So it's kind of a key thing. So although thoughts themselves are powerless, thoughts raised to a level of beliefs do have power to impact your provisional reality. So it's when we raise them or give attention to them to the level of giving them or making them a belief, then they do have power. So here's a question: how do meaningless thoughts become beliefs? I mean, if that's truly how they become so powerful, how do we get them to become beliefs? Well, when you judge a simple thought as either good or bad, you raise that thought to the level of a belief. That's a powerful statement, right? So when we judge something is either good or bad, then we raise that thought to the level of a belief because we put a judgment to it. So beliefs are empowered with your own mind's creative energy. Your mind's beliefs can either align with the truth or the false. False beliefs have no power to change reality, but they do impact the delusional mind of the holder of that belief. False beliefs generate the fearful world that becomes the believer's own private hell. So and remember, we've done some work on this where our minds can take us down to some pretty dark places and can create some pretty scary things that actually aren't true. So in lesson 37, a couple days ago, it stated that your holiness blesses the world. You can only bless the world when you see yourself as whole. So without the belief in your holiness or wholeness, you will make additional demands upon any situation. So you will not only give to get. Let me say this, I said that wrong. You will only give to get. That's when you're operating from there, from that place of not being whole. You'll only give to get. These counter demands are made to fulfill your perceived needs, and that lack that shows up is based on your ego. So this is all maybe kind of starting to tie itself together over the last couple of days. When you make demands, your focus is on some anticipated results. Believing you must earn some reward, you are constantly judging each moment as either good or bad. Now, your ego is a big judging machine. You probably, my bold grads in the group, you've seen that before, right? So we talk about your ego is a big judging machine, and that we are judging creatures. That's how we've been conditioned. Now, egoic judgments, so raise innocent thoughts to the level of powerful beliefs. When you judge something as good or bad, the moment becomes a source of guilt, blame, and fear. So when you judge something as either good or bad, that moment becomes a source of either guilt, blame, or fear. So that's when it starts to create something not necessarily powerful for you. When you judge something as good or bad, that moment becomes a source. You become a guilt thrower or a guilt catcher. Blame another, and you merely project your guilt upon them while pretending to be an innocent victim. Yet even innocent victims must feel guilty about allowing themselves to be victimized. So therefore, guilt is hell. When you are not whole, you perceive outside forces that can rob you of your peace and your happiness. You do not perceive yourself as a learner, nor as everything for your best interest. Your egoic belief in victims and victimizers spawns your unloving thoughts. Because of your belief system, you judge, and your outer world become a reflection of your inner mind's guilt. So salvation, I remember I said I was going to give you some definition of this, means that you must escape from your own unloving thoughts. So that's the definition of salvation in A Course in Miracles. You must escape from your own unloving thoughts. You cannot do this within the fear-based thought system that generated these thoughts in the first place. And that fear-based thought system is your egoic mind. You need a new plan. You need a thought system based upon the opposite of fear and guilt, which is love and forgiveness. So the opposite of fear and guilt is love and forgiveness. And that's really how we start to change this. All right. So let's go back into the lesson a little bit. So here's what we're asking that you do for this lesson 39. Again, the lesson statement is, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. There's nothing my holiness cannot do. Now, for a full 5 minutes, you're urged for 4 longer practice periods today. So it's 4 practice periods, about 5 minutes each, much like the last couple days. So let's see. If you want to exceed the minimum requirement, more rather than longer sessions are recommended, although both are suggested. So don't go to 10 minutes, do more sessions is what they recommend. So begin the practice period as usual by repeating today's idea that my holiness is my salvation, and just repeat that to yourself. Then with eyes closed, search out your unloving thoughts in whatever form your unloving thoughts may appear. It could be uneasiness, it could be depression, it could be anger, it could be fear, it could be worry, attack, insecurity, anything like that that comes up for you that leaves you uneasy. That's what we're looking for. Whatever form your unloving thoughts take, they are unloving and therefore fearful. And so it is from your unloving thoughts that you need to be saved. It's away from fear. So specific situation, events, or personalities you associate with unloving thoughts of any kind are suitable for today's exercise. So anything that comes up is suitable to work with. It is imperative for your salvation that you see your unloving thoughts differently. And it is your blessing on your unloving thoughts that will save you and give you vision. That's a strong statement. So let me say that again. It's your blessing on your unloving thoughts that will save you and give you vision. So slowly, without conscious selection, so again, no judgment or filtering on this, slowly and without due emphasis on any one of your unloving thoughts in particular, search your mind for every unloving thought that stands between you and your salvation. And apply this idea for today that my holiness is my salvation to each of your unloving thoughts in the following format. So what you might want to do is just say this. So my holiness is my salvation as we start the lesson. And then you could say my unloving thought about blank or thoughts about blank are keeping me in hell. So it's acknowledging that that is where that's being there, what's holding that for you. And then you would say my holiness is my salvation. So you acknowledge it, you call it for what it is, end it with my holiness is my salvation. So 4 practice periods of up to 5 minutes each for this, and just be okay with what comes up. Now, you might find these particular practice periods easier if you intersperse them with several short periods during which you merely repeat today's idea that my holiness is my salvation. You may also find it helpful to include a few short intervals in which you just relax and do not seem to be thinking of anything. Sustained concentration is very difficult at first. So like if you're searching for whatever that unloving thought might be, it's tough to do. So sustained concentration, however, will become much easier as your mind becomes more disciplined and less distractible. Meanwhile, you should feel free to introduce variety into the exercise period at whatever form appeals to you. For example, it says, do not, however, change the idea that your holiness is your salvation. As you do that. However, you may elect to use the idea that each practice, the idea should be stated so that its meaning is the fact that your holiness is your salvation. So you could change the way you state it. Then you end each practice period by repeating the idea that my holiness is my salvation in its original form, once more adding then this last statement, and that is, if guilt is hell, what is the opposite? So a little more complicated exercise today, but really powerful. So start out by saying my holiness is my salvation. Close your eyes. Whatever comes up that causes uneasiness, that's what we're going to work with, because we know that that's where the hell comes from. And it's to work through that and make that statement is that that's my unloving thoughts about this are keeping me in hell. My thoughts are my salvation. And then finally, when you wrap each of those periods, you would ask yourself this. If guilt is hell, what is the opposite? If guilt is hell, what is the opposite? Final thoughts, and then I'll just ask if there's any questions. So just from salvation, this is how A Course in Miracles defines it. So again, I just thought it would be helpful. So it defines it that salvation means nothing. Salvation is merely the undoing in the sense that your mind simply stops supporting your dream world of anger and fear. Salvation lets illusions go by no longer supporting them. The illusion that you could be something other than as God created you simply then disappears. So it's a very different context than a lot of the definitions we've probably been given for that. So that's why I thought it was important to have it. So with that, I'm going to just ask if there's any thoughts or questions. This is a big lesson today. Any thoughts or questions or comments? All right, guys, well, have an awesome Thursday. We will see you tomorrow for our number 40 of this. We'll do that at 9 o'clock. Stick with the lesson today. This is really a powerful one, and see what we can do with it and see what happens for you. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
My pleasure.